What is the last thing people check before they go to bed and the first thing they reach for in the morning? Yep, you guessed it, the mobile phone. Mobile phones first came to New Zealand in the 1980s. They were expensive and huge and known as the brick. The only thing you could do on these phones were ring people. If you got lost, you were unable to find your way on Google Maps. You would have had to stop a stranger and ask them for directions. If you wanted to take a photo, you used an actual camera, not your phone. Also, an apple was a piece of fruit you ate and not a brand of technology. In the 1990s, mobile phones became much more common. They were becoming smaller and cheaper, with a few more functions on them, such as texting. By the 2000s, you could take photos and do even more amazing things than you could do before. Mobile phones are great for privacy. Could you imagine standing in the lounge with your phone fixed to the wall having a conversation? You couldn't move around, and everyone around you would be able to hear every single word you were saying. Well, that's what it would have been like before mobile phones were invented. I guess parents liked it so they could hear what was being said, but I bet we would have liked it more so we could eavesdrop and hear what our parents were saying. Mobiles have reduced the amount of gadgets you need, as most phones have a calculator, an alarm clock, and more cool things. They are great to play games on while killing time, waiting, and are great in emergencies. Texting has become an amazing and hugely popular invention. In 2005, 10 million texts per day were sent around the world, and by 2012 that had increased to 6.5 trillion texts per day. That's about 200,000 texts every single second. Now that is a lot of texting. With texting came the invention of text-to-language, where you shorten real words with shorter ones to save time and most probably your thumbs. In 2008, New Zealand had over 4.6 million phones, but there was only a population of 4.2 million people, so that meant there were more phones than people. How does that work? I have never ever seen a baby with a phone. Mobile phones have many uses and are an amazing piece of technology with so much information at your fingertips. Who would have thought back in the 80s, one day you would be able to take a photo, read the news, listen to music, or even watch TV, all on your phone. They never would have thought you could have an instant conversation without talking to a person face to face. I guess the real challenge with mobile phones is that we never forget how to have a real conversation or how to spell properly. But most importantly, we never text and drive. I can't imagine what life was like back in the 80s, but I know that me and probably many of you wouldn't want to be without our mobile phones.
Kids' place. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. It's got a roller coaster in the dark, a Star Wars ride for the universe, and a log flume with a 60-foot drop. There was a mountain in the middle of Disneyland, and it had snow on it. Mind-blowing, right? And it also had a roller coaster through it, up, down, left, right. I really wanted to go on it. I moaned and 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 I moaned. My moaning paid off. I sat in the front, so not scared. Next minute, it was over. It was a short ride, but a cool ride. I went on a ride called It's a Small World after all. It was a 15-minute ride, and all through the ride, its music played out. It's a small world after all. It had different countries with a display for each. New Zealand had one, 3 Māori girls and 1 Kiwi. It really was a small world after all. I went on the unscariest haunted house ever. You sat in your cars, you go past ghostly scenes and graveyards. Then at the end you're sitting in your cart and you go past mirrors, and all of a sudden there's a ghost sitting next to you. Clever, not clever enough for me. It had a hologram reflection. Splash Mountain. It was a water ride and a log flume. There were 3 drops, with the last being the biggest. Dad said the best place to be was in the front. I believed him and I got wet, top to bottom. So there, Disneyland isn't just for kids. If it can make my dad scream, it can make anyone scream.